What's going on, everybody? Today we are doing a spur-of-the-moment solo CM, but not in my best available gear. This is going to be a no mega rare run, and I've downgraded my armor and other pieces of gear slightly as well. This is because I had a spur-of-the-moment conversation in the clan where we were discussing getting the solo CM master time, which is 45 minutes. So, since I thought I was a little out of touch, in order to get a better reference, I decided to pot a solo CM here in gear that's pretty similar to my clanmates. Now, I actually overdid the downgrade a little bit here. They do have a Sanguinesti staff. I brought in a regular trident, or I should say the toxic trident, but I do have a Sang staff available, but I just didn't bring that. And I neglected to bring the burning claws. So as such, I don't actually have a DPS spec weapon. But nevertheless, let's get started in the solo CM. Here at Tekton, I'm employing the 5-tick method of doing Tekton. I do have a short on how to do 5-tick Tekton, whether you're using a Fang or a Scythe. Do check that out on the channel if you want to learn how to 5-tick Tekton. It's actually very, very simple. So unfortunately, this is usually the time where the Scythe would get the job done, but not the case right now with the Fang and a Bandos chest piece. So without the Twisted Bow, without the Shadow, and without the Scythe of Vitter, we're going to be using the Lance at Ulm, we're going to be using the Dragon Hunter Crossbow, and of course the Trident. The Boa Fernin, the Bofa, I don't know how to pronounce it. The Bofa is going to carry us through all the rooms, but when it comes time to Ulm, we're not going to be bringing the Bofa in, and instead we're going to be bringing the Dragon Hunter Crossbow in. It's the black crossbow in my inventory right now. I do have a cosmetic thing on it. I believe once you unlock Elite tier, I could be mistaken. It's either Elite or Master tier combat achievements. You can actually put on the King Black Dragon heads on it, or the Vorkath head. Those are the two options. So I have that on. So let's just get done with the crab room. Rooms like Crab Room are very, very simple, but if you're, in a pinch for time, or a crunch for time, what's the saying? I don't know. But these are rooms you have to get right. A 101 is definitely not the fastest method. Wow, I can't speak right now. Not the fastest method of doing the Crab Room, but it's a very easy, consistent method I know how to do. I think there are methods where you want to tank the first crystal that comes into the room, and you might switch up the order in which you do the crystals, but what I did just there is the most consistent way I know how. And even though we're trying to go for the master time here, I'm still going to go ahead and take my time and scav here. Built this shared storage for extra space, and then get juice and mushrooms for the brews and restores respectively. Now, if you're looking to save even more time and you're very, very calculated on the amount of brews and restores you need already, whether that's because you're bringing some of them in, because if you look in my inventory right now, I actually have plenty of space, and there's certainly some switches that I could drop. For example, I could not bring in the Ferocious gloves and just camp the Barrows gloves. Although, personally, that's something I don't recommend. I think the Ferocious gloves are very, very strong, and honestly, not just in chambers, but in almost anything in this game, PVM-wise, I think DPS is king. Defense isn't quite as important when you just, get the job done quicker in terms of all the bosses and mobs and whatnot. So we have everything we need. We have more than everything we need. We got 20 juice and 17 mushrooms. We built the chest. We built the biggest chest even. And then here, let's get started on chopping for kindling. Right here, I'm doing a bit of a time save by moving between each EXP drop. That way I can pick up my pots that I previously dropped and get this tinderbox that we obviously need to light the braziers. And then we also utilize the same strategy to put us closer to the braziers and the ice demon room in general. We actually have a full inventory of kindling already, so let's light the first brazier. Now when it comes to ice demon, while it seems like it's a pretty boring room, you do have to pay attention here, especially, once again, if you're in a time crunch. So I went ahead and did 28 whole kindling there. But if you're looking to go faster, definitely don't do that. Really, you just need 23, 24 kindling, and then you go ahead and deposit. And then same thing with the second set of kindling. I'm going for 28 here again, but again, time crunch, just go for about 23, 24, and then you definitely want to light a second brazier. And then here, this is just bonus, really. I'm going to go for as much as I can down to, or up until Ice Demon gets to about 35%. I'm kind of squeezing out the points here. This is not the method for going quick. If you want to go quick, just get like 3 to 4 chops and then light a third brazier. Here I go back to the first one, but again, if you're looking to go faster and you don't care about the points, go for a third brazier. So earlier at Tekton, I mentioned I forgot the burning claws, and honestly, this is the biggest time loss right here without the burning claws. Ice Demon is weak to Demon Bane. It hasn't always been the case, but it's been that way for quite a while now, and the burning claws would have been very, very nice. Instead, because I forgot the burning claws, we're going to have to attack Ice Demon from 100% to 0% with the Fang. Now, if your options are the Fang or the Bofa with Ice Demon, the Fang is better. And we also went ahead and sent an Elder Moss spec on Ice Demon as well. Again, if you had the Burning Claws, or even to bring an Emberlight, actually. Again, I was just copying my clanmate setup. I definitely would recommend everybody to bring the Emberlight. I think even the Arclight would be good, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, Ice Demon is weak to Demon Bane things now, so definitely the move. So I took my time scavving, but as I was discussing before, Ice Demon does drop some supplies, some resources. So if that's enough for you, then, you know, skip out on the scavving and just pick up the supplies here. But for me right now, this solo CM run, it's a feel out process. This is not the typical gear that I'm in. I haven't ran a raid in this type of gear, this tier of gear, in a long time, other than to do my Rags to Riches series, available on the channel. It's a playlist, but even then I did that series quite a while ago, so this is all very, very unfamiliar. In fact, here at Shaman Room, you might catch me 5-ticking my Bofa by accident just because I'm accustomed to the twisted bow. And later on, at Ulm, you'll see that when I begin running, mage running with the Trident, there's been a few occasions where I might think I'm about to 5-0, or not 5-0, sorry, 12-0 and 8-1 the Shadow with my 5-tick Shadow, but hey, we have a 4-tick weapon, so that's not the case. So yeah, this was not a perfect run by any means because, yeah, it takes a lot to get used to the different gear that I'm in, and then the inventory looks all different and everything, so yeah, it's a lot to process, but I think we did an okay job in this run. For Shaman Room, a time save is to not let them jump at all. There are safe spots around the room, which, you know, in a casual run, you probably want to employ, especially if you're tight on resources, prayer-wise and whatnot, then you want to save on that. Once you safe spot it, you can turn off your prayer and just flick instead. So we made it to the resource room, or the prep room, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be doing a full prep here, really taking our time. However, I have done this prep literally over 1,000 times, so this is going to be a pretty quick prep for me. Again, this type of prep I've done countless times before, and I actually have a YouTube short on this that I'll link in the description as well. In fact, I'll try to link everything I've referenced so far in the description, because yeah, I've done solo CMs thousands of times, or over 1,000 times, not quite 2,000 times. However, if you include regular chambers, I've definitely done solo chambers thousands of times across multiple accounts. But the gist of it is we're going to be making 13 brews and 8 restores, which is actually more than enough even in this setup. In a max setup, this is by far an over prep, but you know what? I'm not so sure these days in this particular setup. I think it's more than enough. It's pretty comfortable for sure. Alright, it's prep room, you know, not much going on. Just make my brews, break my restores. I do not need to make another overload and enhance. The ones from Tekton are going to carry us over. And then we can go ahead and drop those actually and get a quick refresh of them post vanguards. And then even after vanguards, you get them at Vespula, and then you get another overload at Vasa, and then of course you get more overloads and enhances at Muttadile room. That change to Chambers of Xeric was from a long time ago. In fact, there's probably a subsection of the viewers right now that have never experienced chambers pre-changes. Back then, the overloads and enhances were a little more scarce than they are now. So you, especially in a team setting, you had to be a little careful of your usage. But in a solo, you know, you pick them up, you sip them, you drop them. Here at Vanguards, we're going to prioritize maging first. Now, I actually do this pretty much no matter what setup I'm in. Although I do open up with a ZCB if I was to bring one, but obviously in this setup I don't have one. And Vanguards, you really just want to get accustomed to the safe spots and really rely on the plugin. I don't know if this is the Chambers of Xeric plugin or specifically like Cox Vanguards or whatever. There's a lot of plugins. Yeah, just take your time, understand the safe spots, and when it comes to the Ranger here, do utilize the step under method, especially if you're using a 5-tick weapon, just to prevent damage taken. Now, a neat little trick to make sure you maneuver around quick enough before the Vanguards come back up from digging is that right when they dig, if you're not sure which way they're going to go, because it is actually RNG, I believe, you want to just click towards the center of the room as quickly as possible the moment they dig, and that way your character is already on the move and you can move accordingly. But I will say for the Vanguard room, for the most part, I prioritize following the Ranger around because that is by far the tankiest Vanguard, and the fact that you can utilize the step under method. I do want to clarify, the Ranger is the only one in which you can utilize the step under method. It seems weird, but for whatever reason, the other two Vanguards don't work the same way. They will path and eventually find you. But this green one right here, this Ranger, it won't do that for whatever reason. I don't know. Chambers of Xeric is the oldest raid by far, right? It's the first ever raid in the game, so maybe that's just some jank to do with that. Who knows? Okay, with all the prep we did earlier, we're also going to be picking up all the Vanguards, brews, and restores. And like I mentioned earlier, a refresh of the overload and enhance. Again, if you're in a time crunch, Thieving room is a boring room, just like Crab's room was, but you do want to be quick, right? So in the thieving room, make sure you have an inventory space available and start picking the grubs from the chests once you get in. Don't go all the way to the chest, deposit your stuff, and then start doing it. That is a pretty significant time waste. The numbers to shoot for, you can go for 9 grubs if you're really, you know, focused, and it does rely a little bit on RNG. But a more consistent number would be probably about 11 grubs or so, then deposit into the trough right there, and then do 3 to 4 chests, rinse and repeat until you get 30 grubs. So here you want to withdraw all your specialty items, all the room specific items. So we take out the pickaxe, we take out the salve, which by the way, if you did have a mega rare, the shadow specifically, you wouldn't be bringing the salve at all. So we have the pickaxe and the salve, and in the distant past, you definitely would have wanted to keep your bronze axe from Ice Demon, but these days you'll just get an axe at Muttadile. For Vespula, make sure you have your quick prayers set to redemption and rigor. So doing this Vespula method is just a matter of patience, not panicking just because you're low health, and taking your time in a weird way. The only time you're in a dangerous spot in which you could potentially plank is when you're under Vespula. But you see the mark tiles I have, right? In fact, right there, you could see I kind of paused because I had to re-overload. I paused right there. This is a save tile. Also, it would have been more ideal if I didn't have to overload in the middle of this room to begin with. Perhaps I should have overloaded beforehand, but I kind of forgot. And another mistake I made here, I was speaking about using the Bofa here. Well, when you use a shadow, this room is done a lot quicker, like significantly quicker. You'd only really use about like 2 restores at the most. So because of that habit, because I'm used to using a shadow, I had my entire mage gear on me. But in doing a Bofa run, you probably want to just bank all but your trident. Actually, no, you want to bank all your mage gear at this point. You can use the trident for Muttadile room, or actually, more specifically, if you had a Sanguinesti staff from Theater of Blood, it is worth bringing to the Muttadile room while you're chopping the tree, because that can heal you, right? But for me right here, honestly, I don't think there was a single reason why I should have kept any of my mage gear on me. I realized after the fact there, and I did bank everything but my trident. In my mind, I still needed the trident for some reason, but I really don't. I'm just going to be using the Bofa and the Fang for the rest of these rooms. And here at Tightrope, we're not doing any fancy smancy skipping. In fact, we're not even doing a half skip, which is a strategy where you would kill the rangers and then simply tank the mages because they do a lot less damage compared to the rangers. But no, we're just going to be doing the room for points. And if you look in the top left corner, you can see that we're pacing pretty comfortably, honestly. 19 minutes in so far, and we're about to hit the final floor before Ulm. A nice little strategy here for the rangers. Again, this is actually one of the situations where I was thinking about using a T-bow 5-tick weapon. I'm doing a step back method, but with a 4-tick weapon like the Bofa, you don't have to. But the strategy I'm employing right here is that I'm switching into some tankier range defense armor while the ranger is shooting me. This is because the damage is actually calculated after the shot, and because of that, you can actually safely brew, even if you're like low health and you know you're in chance territory, like you're 5 health and that ranger is most definitely going to hit you for 5. It doesn't matter. As long as the arrow and the hit spot hasn't shown yet, you can brew and it won't hit more than the 5 HP you theoretically had. So that's Tightrope done with. We're going to brew up, equip our melee gear with the pickaxe and defender on, so we have the maximum allowed inventory space. Right here, I actually wasn't sure what my brew to restore ratio should have been. Again, this is not the usual gear I'm in, but we just packed our inventory with brews because of the way we prepped and all the resources we picked up from vanguards and various other rooms. This is more than comfortable. And next up is the Guardian's room. Not much to it. You just hit the Guardian, you step back. Or I guess more specifically, this is the strategy here at Guardians. Although I suppose if you're looking to do a solo CM, you should have already learned this in a regular chambers. But nevertheless, you step in to attack the Guardian, then you run back a tile, then you step in one tile, and as soon as your character has stopped moving, that's when you know you're off a weapon cooldown and you can attack with the pickaxe again. This is a method that saves you a little bit of run energy, which is not really too much of an issue these days, but you can see with, you know, all the things we have on us, we're pretty heavy right now, and we're actually down to 80 run energy. So this isn't something that's particularly difficult, so why not do it, right? But of course, we also have our stamina pot with us. In the middle of this run, well, to go into the run, I realized I brought 2 full staminas in, which is something I definitely used to do, but with the availability of the extended stamina potions now, I think you could probably just bring 1. No matter what gear setup you're in, I think 1 full extended stamina potion is more than enough. Honestly, I'm convinced you can get through all the rooms without sipping a stamina dose at all. But just for a comfort thing, and for me personally, just something I'm used to, is actually using those stamina doses, so I went ahead and brought the stamina with me anyways. But of course, you need stamina for Ohm, no matter what, if you are soloing. So right here, I tried to go for the Vasa teleport skip, and truth be told, when this method became popularized and it was known, I was pretty much done with chambers by then. I haven't done too much chambers recently, relatively speaking, so I'm still not super adept at that, I guess. So I messed up there, and it's good actually, because it goes to show that this run has by no means been the perfect run, but it's still going well. And those burning claws that I didn't bring in, it would have been good on these Vasa crystals, but instead we're just going to opt to use what we do have, which is the Osmunthum Fang specs. And then, yeah, here at Vasa, when you have a 5-tick weapon like the Twisted Bow, Vasa is actually a little bit awkward, and I was pathing around thinking I did have the Twisted Bow, but again, with a Bofa, it's actually incredibly simple. You just click Vasa, you click to run a tile, you click Vasa, you click to run a tile, you click Vasa, rinse and repeat, you'll never get hit, and you'll always shoot off a weapon cooldown. As long as you actually run and skip a tile, right? You might have just saw earlier I walked a tile, and obviously that's how you can still get hit. So right here, so unfortunate, Vasa is actually 1 HP. I could have finished it before I hit this crystal. Heck, if my Thrall did 1 more damage, but hey, it is what it is. We get the job done there. So back at Guardians, I believe I dropped the Overload just to make room because I knew I was going to get another Overload here at Vasa. And then I sipped the Prayer Enhance, dropped that to make room for the brews, the 2 brews from Vasa. You can see my inventory is absolutely packed with brews. Let me count here. Let's see, I have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 11 brews in our inventory. This is so if Muttadile goes terribly wrong, because, well, it can. Muttadile is very unforgiving sometimes. It's a little bit better these days, but even still. Jagex definitely knew what they were doing by putting that room as the last room right before Ulm, when you have 35,000 points or more. That's a lot to lose. You lose 50% of your points if I'm not mistaken. Here at Mystic Room, your best weapon of choice by far is the Bofa with the Salve Amulet on. If you had a Shadow, you would wear full mage gear and not bring a Salve to save yourself that inventory space. And you'd be shadowing these instead. As long as you understand corner safe spotting these mystics, there's not much else to the Mystic Room. How it works is that actually it's not a 100% safe spot, as the mages will still occasionally, or the mystics will still occasionally mage you, I should say. But what it's doing is it's trying to melee you as well, but then it can't reach you. So the mystic's kind of like confused in that sense. It'll occasionally throw out a mage hit, but it's also trying to reach you via a melee attack, but it can't. So in that sense, it's sort of a safe spot. But that's why you still have to keep Prey Mage on, and you gotta be careful not to get boxed if you like step away one tile or something. So with that Mystic out the way, unfortunately I think at Vasa we actually spawned the Tendrils. I was going for the Tendril skip here, but nope, they already spawned. And what that means is, you know, the entire Muttadile room has already been generated, so the Baby Doll is actually just lurking on the other side of the room. I could have got away with a couple of free chops here, I guess, but I don't know, maybe just as quickly the Muttadile would have just moved closer anyways, so I opted to hit it anyways. And the strategy right here is to just wear a hybrid set of defense armor. Just get your armor up, you know. Like, obviously don't sit in mage gear, although at this point you definitely shouldn't have any mage gear on. And the strategy is to chop. Once you get a woodcutting EXP drop, go ahead and attack Muttadile. And at the same time, that's when you can brew or restore and then click back on the tree without missing any ticks. And definitely don't greed here. Sit as high health as possible while still being efficient with your brews. Like, don't over brew if you're like 110 health and use a brew dose, right? That just seems like an absolute waste. But definitely over heal yourself. Because you can see right there, we got put down to 23 health. And right here, I was actually a little confused because the strategy in max gear would be to shadow this Muttadile here. But obviously we don't have that in the setup, so I began Bofaing it, which I believe is actually better DPS than the Fang. However, you're in much tankier gear when you're in melee, so back in the day, I definitely used to Fang the Muttadile, the Baby Doll there. And then here we are dealing with the Momadile, which is much better these days than before, but still can be very rude. It's much better because you see right there in Mage attack, I swapped to Prey Mage because I know after the first Mage attack, the next two attacks are guaranteed to also be Mage attacks. And obviously the range hits hit like an absolute truck. The mage hits do hurt, but not so much. So after 3 total mage attacks, I always switch back to range personally. So that's Muttadile room done with 28.5 minutes, and we're heading into Ulm. So as we run to Ulm, I'm actually brewing up and restoring all the way up here. Because again, we have plenty of supplies. So better make sure to get good use out of it. Regenerate our stamina as well. Again, if you're in a time crunch, just go ahead and sip your stamina. I mean, it's a couple of ticks saved, I suppose, but hey, sometimes you might need those ticks. And then ironically, when you get here, take your time. Make sure you don't forget anything, because the worst thing that can happen is you forget something incredibly crucial, like your Dragon Hunter Lance, for example, or your Elder Maul or Dragon Warhammer. That would be unfortunate. You know, I guess the Elder Maul is technically a mega rare item, but when people refer to mega rare items, they're thinking of the big 3, the Twisted Bow, the Shadow, and the Scythe of Fitter. You know, once upon a time, the Elder Maul wasn't even a spec weapon either, so... yeah, times have changed. So right here, we fill up our inventory. We actually drop a couple of switches. So we're not bringing the Bofa in, we're using the Dragon Hunter crossbow. And we drop the Crystal Helmet, we're not bringing that in. We banked the Fang, and whatever else we had, like the pickaxe, the Salve Amulet, obviously we don't need those anymore in the Ulm fight. So we begin with hammer specs, and right here, I didn't bring a light bear switch in, but this is the exact place where the light bear would shine. So very fortunately, we did get at least one hammer spec there, but imagine if we didn't, right? It'd be quite unfortunate. This would be the time while we're maging to wear the light bear so that we get our spec back, and then that way when we finish the mage hand, back on the melee hand, we will have 50 spec, unless we just went absolutely nuclear on the mage hand. We would have 50 spec to go for another spec, because the defense reduction draining is a pretty significant difference, especially in these mid-tier setups. Now, if you were in full oath plate with a scythe, honestly, it's not quite as noticeable in my opinion. But the lesser your gear is, the more you're really going to see that defense reduction difference. Getting into Ulm, honestly, I sort of surprised myself because I've been very accustomed to the Shadow method and the Scythe method, but seems like I've flowed into the 3-0 4-tick mage hand and the 4-1 4-tick melee hand pretty quickly, actually. I mean, I do have a lot of reps in this, but my more recent developed muscle memory is on different tick weapons. Well, with the rest of this Ulm fight, there's honestly not too much to say, so I guess I'll just be letting this play out, and then we'll see what kind of time we get and what kind of loot we get. It looks like we're going to get about 64,000 points here, maybe just shy. The amount of points you finish out with in a flawless deathless run does vary because of rooms like the Ice Demon room with the Kindling and Vasa. Ironically enough, if you're slower in the Vasa room, you'll get more crystals, meaning Vasa will heal more as well, and that actually nets you a little bit more points. As for the time, we got a 39:22, which is well past the 45-minute mark for the master time, so I'd say we did a pretty good job there.